Hello, hello, English learners. Welcome back to Learn How to Learn English, the podcast where every episode gives you real English and a little push to live better. I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex. Back again with more stories, more vocabulary, and more real talk. Emma, guess where I was this past Saturday morning?
Let me guess. Still asleep?
Normally, yes. But this time, I actually dragged myself out early to the farmer's market downtown.
Look at you being productive on a weekend.
Barely. I stood in front of a table of tomatoes for a solid minute, completely unsure how to even start a conversation with the vendor. Do I just point? Do I say something first? My brain went completely blank.
That's such a common moment, honestly. Even simple, everyday places like a market can suddenly feel intimidating in a new language, mostly because we never actually practice that specific kind of conversation.
Exactly. Which is exactly why today's topic felt perfect. Today we're talking about how to talk at the market. Easy English conversation for daily life.
Whether it's a farmer's market, a regular grocery store, or a local corner shop, today we're covering the real, practical English you'll actually use. Greetings, asking prices, quantities, freshness, checkout, even a little friendly small talk with the person behind the counter.
And as always, if today's episode helps you, please subscribe to Learn How to Learn English. Tap that like button and share it with someone who could use a little extra shopping confidence.
Let's head to the market. Why market English feels tricky. Let's start by understanding why this specific situation feels harder than it should. A market conversation is short, fast, and a little unpredictable, completely different from a slow, planned classroom conversation.
That's exactly what happened to me with those tomatoes. There was no time to plan a perfect sentence. The vendor just looked at me, smiling, clearly waiting.
And that's honestly the biggest challenge. Market English is quick and reactive, not something you can fully script in advance. But the good news is, it's also very repetitive. The same handful of phrases come up again and again.
So, if I learn maybe 15 or 20 solid phrases, I could genuinely handle most market situations?
Almost entirely, yes. Once you know how to greet someone, ask a price, ask for a quantity, and pay, you can reuse that same small toolkit at almost any market, any store, anywhere.
That's honestly reassuring. I thought I needed some huge vocabulary list just to buy tomatoes.
Definitely not. A small, reliable toolkit will take you much further than a giant list you never actually practice. Let's start where you got stuck, Alex. Actually starting the conversation. A simple, friendly greeting works perfectly. Hi, how's it going? Or simply, good morning, is a great opener.
And then what? Do I just ask about the tomatoes directly?
You can, very naturally. Something like, these look great. Are they local? It's friendly, it shows interest, and it naturally opens the door to more conversation.
What if I don't have a specific question yet, and I just want to browse a little first?
A simple, polite phrase works well there too. I'm just looking, thanks. Or, I'll take a look around first. Vendors are used to hearing this, and it gives you space without feeling rude.
I really wish I'd known that phrase on Saturday. I just stood there silently, which probably looks stranger than saying anything at all.
A little awkward silence at a produce table? Very relatable. Let's make sure that never happens to you again.
What about when the vendor speaks first? Sometimes they'll say something like, "Can I help you find anything?"
A great, simple response is, yes, actually. Do you have any fresh basil today? Naming exactly what you're looking for keeps the conversation short, clear, and easy to follow. Speaking of markets, I actually have a funny story from my own early days navigating a farmer's market in a new city. I once confidently asked a vendor for a pound of that green stuff, pointing vaguely at his table.
That green stuff? What happened?
He laughed kindly and said, "Sure, which green stuff exactly? I've got kale, spinach, and green beans right there." I had no idea there were three completely different vegetables sitting side by side.
That's such an honest beginner mistake, though. Vegetables can look surprisingly similar when you're nervous and rushing.
Exactly my excuse at the time. After that slightly embarrassing moment, I made it a habit to actually learn the names of vegetables I bought regularly, just so I'd never freeze like that again.
Did it help?
Enormously. Within a few weeks, I could confidently ask for exactly what I wanted, by name, without any vague pointing involved.
Lesson learned. Know your vegetables before you approach the table.
A surprisingly useful piece of English advice, honestly.
Let's talk about prices, because I think this is where a lot of learners freeze up too, especially with numbers moving quickly.
The most basic, useful question is simply, how much is this? Or, how much are these? Singular for one item, plural for multiple items.
What if I want to ask about the price per pound instead of just one item?
Good question. You'd ask, how much per pound? Or, what's the price per pound? Very common at farmers markets especially, since fruits and vegetables are usually priced that way.
And if I only catch part of what they said because they spoke quickly?
Completely normal. And there's a simple, polite phrase for that, too. Sorry, could you repeat that? Or, sorry, how much did you say? Nobody minds repeating a price at all.
I definitely needed that phrase on Saturday too. The vendor said a number so quickly, I just nodded and hoped for the best.
The classic nervous nod. We've all been there at least once.
Multiple times in my case.
One more useful phrase here. Is that the price for one or for the pack? Sometimes prices are listed per item, sometimes per package, and it's completely fine to double check. Once you know the price, the next natural step is asking for a specific quantity. In the US, quantities are usually measured in pounds, ounces, or simply a few, a couple, or a dozen.
Something like, can I get 2 pounds of apples, please?
Exactly right. Or, I'll take a dozen eggs. Or, just a couple of onions, please. Simple, clear numbers plus the item name.
What if I'm not exactly sure how much I need, and I just want a small amount to try?
A great phrase for that is, can I just get a small amount to try? Or, I'll start with a little, thanks. Most vendors are completely happy to sell smaller quantities, especially at farmers markets.
That would have been perfect for the basil I mentioned earlier. I genuinely didn't need a whole pound of it.
Nobody needs a whole pound of basil unless they're planning an extremely ambitious dinner.
Noted, for future reference.
Another useful phrase, could I mix and match? This works well at stands selling several types of the same item, like different apple varieties, where you might want a few of each instead of all one kind.
What about actually asking whether something is fresh or good quality? That felt like another tricky area for me.
A simple, direct question works well. Is this fresh? Or, how fresh is this? Vendors, especially at farmers markets, are usually proud to answer this in detail.
And if I want to know when something was picked or made?
You could ask, when was this picked for produce? Or, was this made today for baked goods? Very natural, very common questions at any local market.
What about asking someone to help you choose the best one, if there are several options?
A great friendly phrase. Which one would you recommend? Vendors genuinely love this question since it shows trust in their knowledge and they usually enjoy helping.
I actually used something similar without realizing it, later that same Saturday, at a stand selling peaches. I just asked, which one's the sweetest? And the vendor happily picked one out for me.
Perfect example, actually. See, you already had some natural market instincts, even without today's episode.
One good peach question, after one very awkward tomato silence. Progress, I suppose.
Speaking of helpful vendors, I want to share one more story. At a small local market near my apartment, there's a woman who sells honey. And our very first conversation genuinely changed how comfortable I felt shopping there.
What happened?
I nervously asked, is this good honey? An incredibly vague question, honestly. Instead of just saying yes, she laughed warmly and said, good is relative. Do you like something floral or something a little stronger?
That's such a thoughtful response. It turned a vague question into an actual, real conversation.
Exactly. I ended up learning the difference between wildflower honey and buckwheat honey that day, completely by accident, just from one honest, curious question.
That's honestly a great reminder. Vendors often genuinely enjoy explaining their products. It's not an interruption, it's often a welcome part of their day.
Exactly. Asking a slightly open question like, what do you recommend? Or, what's the difference between these two? Often leads to the best small conversations of the whole week.
And probably some genuinely useful English practice too, completely for free.
A free English lesson wrapped inside a jar of honey. Not a bad deal at all. Let's move to the final, often nerve-wracking step, actually paying. What phrases do you usually hear right before checkout?
Usually something like, will that be all? Or, is that everything for you today?
Exactly. And a simple response works perfectly. Yes, that's everything, thanks. Or, actually, one more thing, if you remember something else.
What about asking how someone would like to pay, or being asked that yourself?
You'll often hear, how would you like to pay? Card or cash? A simple answer works well. Card, please, or I'll do cash today.
And if a machine isn't working, or there's some small confusion at checkout?
A useful, polite phrase, sorry, could you try that again? Or, I think it didn't go through. Payment hiccups happen everywhere, in every language, completely normal.
That actually happened to me last month at a grocery store here. My card didn't work the first time, and I just stood there awkwardly instead of saying anything useful.
The classic frozen checkout moment. Let's fix that too, right now.
Please do, before my next unfortunate card mishap.
One more handy phrase. Could I get a receipt, please? Small, simple, incredibly useful, especially if you're keeping track of grocery spending.
Let's talk about the small talk part too, because that's honestly where a market visit starts feeling less like a transaction and more like an actual pleasant conversation.
Simple weather comments work beautifully here. Beautiful morning for a market, isn't it? Or, it's pretty busy today. Nothing complicated, just a light, friendly observation.
And compliments about their stand or products?
Definitely. Your setup looks great today, or everything looks so fresh. Vendors genuinely appreciate hearing this, especially after setting up early in the morning.
What about asking how long they've been selling at that particular market?
A great, natural question. How long have you been coming to this market? It's simple, genuinely interested, and often leads to a nice little conversation about their whole business.
I actually asked the peach vendor something similar, almost instinctively, and she told me she'd been coming to that same market for over 15 years.
See, small talk really doesn't require fancy vocabulary at all. Genuine curiosity and a few simple, natural questions go an incredibly long way.
I think I actually enjoyed that part of the morning most, honestly, once I finally relaxed a little.
Progress from frozen tomato silence to genuine 15-year friendly chats. That's real growth in one Saturday morning. Let's cover one more area. What to do when you genuinely don't understand something the vendor says.
Besides simply asking them to repeat it?
You can also ask them to say it more slowly. Sorry, could you say that a little slower? Completely normal, completely polite, and genuinely helpful in a fast-moving market environment.
What if I understand the words, but I'm still confused about what they actually mean? Like a specific product name I've never heard.
A simple, direct question works well. Sorry, what exactly is that? Or, I've never tried that before. What does it taste like? Curiosity is always a completely acceptable, natural response.
That actually happened with a vegetable called kohlrabi at another stand. I had genuinely never seen it before in my life.
Kohlrabi trips up a lot of people. Honestly, myself included the first time I saw it.
I just pointed and said, "What is that?" Not the most elegant sentence, but it worked well enough.
And that's genuinely fine. Even a simple, slightly clumsy question gets the conversation moving, and usually the vendor is happy to explain everything in detail.
Does the English change much depending on where you're shopping? A farmer's market feels pretty different from a big grocery store or a small corner store.
Good observation. The core phrases stay mostly the same, but the pace and formality shift a little. At a big grocery store, conversations are usually short and efficient. You're mostly interacting with a cashier at checkout.
Whereas at a farmer's market, there's usually more time for actual conversation since you're talking directly with a person who grew or made the item.
Exactly. And at a small neighborhood corner store, things often feel more personal and familiar, especially if you visit regularly. Regulars often get a friendly, "the usual today" kind of greeting.
There's a small corner store near my apartment where the owner already knows I'll ask for the same coffee and bagel every single morning.
That's such a nice example, actually. Once a vendor recognizes you, conversations naturally become shorter and warmer at the same time. Less explaining needed, more genuine friendliness.
So it's worth adjusting expectations depending on where you are. Quick and efficient at a big grocery store, a little slower and chattier at a farmer's market.
Exactly right. Neither style is better than the other. They're just different rhythms. And once you notice the rhythm of a place, your English naturally adjusts to match it.
Kind of like the formal versus casual tone we talked about in our introductions episode.
Exactly the same idea, just applied to a completely different setting. That actually reminds me of my own experience becoming a regular somewhere. When I first moved to my neighborhood, I felt like a complete stranger at the local grocery store, barely exchanging more than a quick "hi" at checkout.
What changed that?
Honestly, just consistency. I kept shopping there every week and slowly started adding one small extra sentence each time. A comment about the weather, a quick thank you with their name if I saw a name tag, small things like that.
And that built a real connection over time?
It really did. After a few months, the cashier started remembering little details, that I always bought the same brand of coffee, that I usually came in on Sunday mornings. Eventually, checkout stopped feeling like a transaction and started feeling like a genuine, if brief, friendship.
That's such a lovely transformation, from stranger to familiar face, just through small, repeated conversation.
And it all started with simple market English, honestly. Nothing complicated, just consistent, friendly little sentences, repeated week after week.
Which proves again that this kind of English isn't really about impressive vocabulary. It's about showing up and speaking again and again.
Exactly the heart of today's whole episode, really. Okay, let's get practical. How can our listeners actually start building confidence for real market conversations?
First, learn the names of foods you buy regularly. Knowing exact vocabulary removes that awkward, vague pointing moment completely.
Second, practice the core phrases out loud before you go, especially, how much is this? And, can I get a pound of? Repetition builds automatic confidence.
Third, start with a small, low-pressure purchase first, like one piece of fruit, just to warm up your speaking before bigger conversations.
Fourth, ask one genuine question every visit, even a small one like, which one's sweetest? It builds real conversation skills, not just transaction skills.
And fifth, don't avoid the vendors who talk a lot. Actually, they're often the best practice, since they naturally keep the conversation going for you.
Market conversations genuinely get easier every single time. That frozen tomato moment becomes rarer and rarer the more often you practice.
Based on last Saturday alone, I've clearly got quite a bit more practicing to do.
Give it a few more weekends, Alex. Soon, you'll be the one giving vegetable recommendations to nervous beginners.
One last thing before vocabulary. What's the best way to handle it if you genuinely say something wrong at the market, like ordering the wrong item completely by accident?
Honestly, the simplest phrase works best. Oh, sorry, I actually meant the other one. Vendors deal with this constantly, and it's never a big deal on their end.
That's reassuring. I once accidentally asked for a pound of jalapenos instead of bell peppers, purely because I mixed up the words in my head.
Oh no, that's quite a spicy mistake to make by accident.
I definitely didn't intend to buy a pound of jalapenos that day. Thankfully, I caught it before paying and just said, "Actually, sorry, I meant the green peppers, not these."
Perfect. Simple correction, no drama needed at all.
And the vendor didn't seem bothered at all, honestly. Just smiled and swapped them out.
That's genuinely how most of these moments go. Vendors are focused on helping you get what you actually want, not judging small mix-ups along the way.
Good to know, especially before my next trip.
Let's hope your jalapeno days are officially behind you.
Emma, what if I buy several things and need a bag? Is there a simple way to ask?
Absolutely. You can simply say, could I have a bag, please?
That sounds easy enough.
Very easy. No advanced English required for a plastic bag.
Good. I think my vocabulary can handle that one.
What if you want to know whether the food is organic?
I could ask, is this organic?
Exactly. And you can also ask, is this locally grown? If you want to know where the food comes from.
So 2 short questions can give me a lot of information.
Exactly. Short questions are often the most useful ones.
What about food that might be spicy? I definitely don't want another surprise.
Especially after your jalapeno adventure.
Please don't remind me.
You can ask, is this spicy? Or, how spicy is it?
That's going straight into my emergency English vocabulary.
If you're buying something prepared, you can also ask about the ingredients.
Like, what's in this?
Exactly. Or, does this contain nuts? If you need to check an ingredient.
What if something is too large or too small?
You can ask, do you have a smaller one? Or, do you have a larger one?
That's useful for things like bread, cakes, or even packages.
Exactly. You don't need a complicated sentence. Just explain what you need.
English becomes much easier when I stop trying to sound like a professor.
That's a very important lesson. Here's another useful situation. What if you're buying several things and want to ask about a discount?
Could I say, is there a discount?
Yes, that's perfectly natural.
And if they say no?
Then you smile and say, no problem.
Simple, polite, and my wallet survives another day.
What if I want to know where the food came from?
You can ask, where does this come from?
And if it's fruit, I could ask, where were these grown?
Exactly. Those are natural questions at a farmer's market. I like that. It turns shopping into a little conversation.
And that's exactly what we're trying to practice. Sometimes vendors offer samples, but what if you want to ask before trying something?
Maybe, can I try some?
Perfect. You could also say, could I try a sample?
That sounds useful.
Just don't turn the market into your free breakfast buffet.
I make no promises. I think another difficult moment is when someone asks, can I help you? And you don't need anything yet.
Then you can simply say, I'm just looking, thanks.
We already mentioned that phrase earlier, but I think it's worth repeating.
Absolutely. Repetition is how useful English becomes automatic.
So saying the same thing twice is actually studying.
Exactly. You're finally discovering my secret.
Word tour time. Let's review today's best vocabulary.
First word, vendor. A person who sells goods, especially at a market or stand. The vendor recommended the sweetest peaches on the table.
Next, produce. Fresh fruits and vegetables. The market had beautiful, colorful produce this morning. Next, quantity. An amount of something, especially one you're buying. She asked for a small quantity of basil to try.
Next, fresh. Recently picked, made, or produced, not old or stale. He asked if the bread was fresh from that morning.
Next, checkout. The place or process of paying for your items. There was a short line at checkout that morning.
Next, receipt. A printed record of what you paid for. She asked for a receipt to track her grocery spending.
Next, recommend. To suggest something as good or suitable. Which one would you recommend for a beginner?
And last, curious. Eager to know or learn something new. He was curious about a vegetable he'd never seen before.
8 practical words today, all ready for your very next trip to the market. Before we close, I want to say this clearly. A market conversation doesn't need to be perfect or even particularly smooth. It just needs to happen.
Every awkward silence, every vague, that green stuff moment, every nervous nod at a price you didn't quite catch, they're all completely normal parts of learning.
And honestly, looking back at my frozen tomato moment now, it feels almost funny rather than embarrassing.
That's exactly how it should feel, eventually. Market English is one of the most practical, repeatable kinds of English you can practice, since you'll likely be back at that same market again next week.
So next time, I'll walk right up to that tomato table and actually say something.
Exactly. A simple, hi, how's it going? Is honestly all it takes to get a real conversation started, one small purchase at a time.
Final wrap-up. Today we talked about why market English feels tricky, how to greet and start a conversation, asking about prices and quantities, discussing freshness and quality, handling checkout, small talk with vendors, and politely working through small misunderstandings.
Our community question for today. What's one food or item you'd love to confidently ask about at your local market? Write it in the comments, in English. We'd genuinely love to read your answers.
And maybe even try asking about it this weekend. Real practice beats studying alone every single time.
Today's key vocabulary to remember: vendor, produce, quantity, fresh, checkout, receipt, recommend, curious. Use them today at your very next market visit.
If today's episode helped you, please click like. Subscribe to learn how to learn English and share it with someone who might feel nervous about their next grocery run.
Talking at the market is one of the easiest, most rewarding ways to practice real, everyday English, mistakes and all.
This was Learn How to Learn English with Alex.
And Emma. Until next time, keep practicing, keep asking questions, and don't be afraid of the produce table. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, and wish me luck. I'm heading back to that farmer's market this weekend, tomatoes and all.